Josh Denbeaux here, foreclosure defense lawyer, consumer protection attorney. I fight for people. I sue banks. So I like my job. All right, look, I wanted to bring an update. I don't generally do update videos on cases that come down the pike or throughout the country. This one, though, is, I think, pretty relevant. I won a trial about 7 or 8 years ago about a second mortgage where my client negotiated a payoff of the second and a modification of the first 7, 8, I think it was more than 7 years earlier, 8 or 9 years earlier. And then 8 or 9 years later, some other company shows up and sues him for foreclosure on the second mortgage. And he says, I paid it. And the other new company says, no, you didn't. We never got a payment. And of course, they weren't the company he paid. They were a debt buyer who bought the second loan from a debt buyer who bought it from a debt buyer who bought it from a bank that went bankrupt, which was the bank that he paid off 8, 9 years earlier. And I won that trial. And that was a great result. But I won the trial based on evidence and testimony, and my client was believable. Those cases, look, I did a good job. I won. But those cases are not a guarantee. Okay, a judge can look at one thing that somebody says and conclude something that I don't agree with as to credibility, and you could lose the case, even though my client had paid the debt. This is important because with the pandemic, first mortgage foreclosures are basically not really being filed. They will be starting January 1, and I've been over that in other videos. So the servicing industry has been dipping into its pool of loans, figuring out what they have, and a bunch of debt buyers are running around buying defaulted second mortgages, which previously had no utility. I mean, nobody had equity in their house. Now we have equity in houses, and the first mortgage foreclosures can't be filed. So some clever, unscrupulous person with a ton of money went and bought a whole lot of these defaulted second mortgages and is filing a foreclosure complaint. Here's the thing. Read your mortgage. It now appears that there's a substantive defense to all of those cases, or at least most of those cases. And here it is. It's very simple. The second mortgage loans, especially the ones that had adjustable interest rate, have a section in the mortgage agreement that doesn't exist in first mortgage loans. And it says the bank will send monthly mortgage statements so you know what you need to pay. And if they don't, they're in breach of contract. If the bank is in breach of contract, that's a defense to the foreclosure case. This piece of advice might save your home. So if you're in a second mortgage situation where a bank is trying to collect on a second mortgage, especially one that's just disappeared for years and years and years, then find your mortgage. And if you can't get a hold of a copy of your mortgage, contact me or contact another expert attorney in your jurisdiction to go get that mortgage through a request for information. And then read it. Read it. And if you want some help reading it, call me. Call another lawyer. Don't do it on your own. Don't be stupid. I know you're not stupid. You're very smart. You're watching this far into the video, which means you care about getting to actual information and advice. Read the mortgage. Read the mortgage. And the note is different than the mortgage. The mortgage is different than the deed. Oh, I've been over those a bunch of times before. Read the mortgage. Okay? You might have defenses you didn't even know about. I'm now going back through some of my other cases to read the mortgages on these to make sure I'm dotting all the I's, crossing all the T's. And then if the bank does screw up, then I'm building a plaintiff's federal case against the bank and maybe the bank's attorney for suing for the wrong number. So, in wrestling, they call it a 2-point turnaround. I don't know what they call it in other sports, but we're talking about someone's coming at you, you turn it around, you go after them. Love that. It's awesome. Thank you for listening.